Now?
Can we have Bowie in the backdrop or what
Sorry?
issues?
What?
Bowie?
Bowie. You want Bowie in the background?
I don't know if it will create issues. You might have problems getting it on YouTube if you do.
I think we probably would do. So I think we'll get rid of the music. So we're live now. That's good. Okay, good. So we'll start in a few minutes, but at least people will see that there's something there going on if there is anybody
Is that the question
interested.
from Thursday 18?
I think we probably would do. So I think we'll get rid of that. We need to get rid of that.
That's the amount of lag, so it's about 15 seconds, something like that. 10?
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
And that's not even choosing the low latency one.
Right. Yeah, normal latency is the same.
I mean, you see, that's quite cool, right?
Yeah. I have to
What?
say, your chroma keying on the camera works a lot better than it does in my studio.
Yeah, but you're using the same software, so the only difference is how smooth the lighting is, which I put all my look. You see the millimeter precision for those lights.
They are nicely symmetrical.
They have to be.
Yeah.
Because it has to
Well,
eliminate.
mine are symmetrical too.
It has
but
to
they're just
eliminate.
low budget.
It has to eliminate the. But they're also big, so that the angle.
Well, mine are
is
I have
bigger.
like tube lights, so the wrong color, like this wide, unfiltered. So I
Oh,
have
the
like
echo.
4
The echo is crazy.
echo. Okay.
Where would echo be coming?
Any speakers on anywhere?
No. Oh, maybe over there. Yeah, but there isn't anything over there, so let's just turn that
We
down.
don't need volume anywhere. So.
There's nothing there. Maybe it's on there. No. Oh, she. It's always good to get feedback from somebody who's then telling you it's all shit, and then it's not.
Because it turned out to be their end.
Ignore it. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. So
Well, it's
I don't
always
know.
hard to know because you can't really check it.
We're 38
yourself.
seconds. I thought it was you. Sorry, it's okay. I know, pretty much knew it was you. Anyway, so we are, I guess.
We are live.
Now we're going to start.
Yeah.
So, I quite like the way this looks, actually.
Yeah.
This works better than I imagined it would be. So anyway, so look, guys, the reason this is happening is we had a meal, didn't we, a while ago,
Yep. A few weeks
in
ago.
that really cool duck restaurant.
Really nice. Yeah. We almost didn't have duck, but it was still.
Well, no, you go to a duck restaurant and then they feed you a big thigh of pork, wasn't it, or something?
It wasn't small.
And that was huge. But anyway, we were there and we ended up talking about software, and then Boudewijn Kruiger.
Yeah, Bowdy because it's just easier.
But
to
Bowdy
pronounce.
is so much easier. As he reminded me a little while ago, we've known each other, it's got to be close to 20 years.
It's almost. I think next year we should have a party for 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a long time.
Or at least a remembrance. I don't know if it's a party.
And you've been on the podcast before, and I can't even remember what we talked about back then, because that was a different version of me anyway, so
Yeah.
in a different place at a different time. So, so basically we met through the touring, representing companies. I was there representing Adobe mainly, and you were representing
I was doing
HP.
HP work, yeah.
So you did large format printing and color management. So
Yeah, I ran the demo center for Hewlett Packard in the Netherlands for
Right.
12 years.
Right.
So anyone who wanted a large format printer would be sent to me, and I would explain. to
So
them
at the
what
events that we were at together, when leads and interest came from that, they would then come to Color Plaza.
yeah,
which
or
was,
to resellers that would come to me because I would not do sales in that position. I was
you
an
were
extension to
you were
reseller
like
channel.
the technical demo help. So you did the technical demonstrations to make people buy it.
I could answer all the
to
technical
buy it.
questions and not.
I'm having such
worry
a problem
about
with my
sales.
microphone.
You can explain why though.
Yeah, it's a bit hot in Holland today. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm sure I'll get through, and if not, then I'll go off and
So you don't
I'll
have
find
chest
an
problems, you just have microphone problems.
Yeah, I don't want to put reinforcing pieces of tape. Yeah, that's not
Not
going to
live.
work. Anyway, it doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter. So yeah, so that's how we met and knew each other. So I did the software demonstration and the how to do cutouts, which I would demonstrate live on stage, and then you would then represent HP.
Yeah.
And then things changed, and then you
Yeah.
ended up in software. That was a surprise to me when I first heard you say that, because
Yeah.
obviously that's quite a step.
It is a step, but for me it was sort of a logical step to take, because I've been coding since I was like 10. Coding is not new to me. It just wasn't my profession. It was more like a hobby than it was a profession. And my profession was doing a large format printers and support on those. But I ran the Competence Center for Hewlett Packard, and they decided out of the blue that during the economic downturn they didn't have any funds left to do it. So I was forced to do something else, and because the thing I had been slowly building was software, I decided to put the focus on that.
Yeah. So the first thing I saw you build, or the first piece of software I saw from you, was that when you recommended to me the Z2100 photo,
the Z series,
because that was a really good piece of advice, because I love that printer, and
at the time it was the best.
And I would, if I needed a printer today, I would still look for something that had the same functionality as that.
Yeah,
The built-in profiling sold it for
they
me.
They never managed to capitalize on it, because they should have been.
How can you not capitalize? Whenever I told anybody who came to my studio that this thing self-profiles,
Yeah,
it
I
doesn't self-calibrate, it
No.
self-profiles,
Yeah.
and then I demonstrate how it does it in 5 minutes, they go, what
Wow.
the
Yeah.
fuck?
Yeah.
And then they go and buy one. And so the amount of people that bought it because I demoed it to them was huge. So how can a big company like us,
I think the main problem was that they never made an A2 model. So the smallest one you could get was 24 inch. And a lot of photographers, they don't start with 24 inch, they start with something smaller. And then their choices would be Epson.
It was a very
basically.
big unit to have in the room, I
Yeah.
have to admit.
Yeah. And they did have some sort of A2 model which lacked the automatic profiling. So it was completely a different series.
But the thing with a 24-inch wide, say, roll-fed thing, paper, is paper management.
Yeah, that was the biggest problem.
Yeah.
To me, always, it surprised me that, and still, manufacturers of printers, so HP, Canon, Epson, all of them, they always manage to make a driver that is completely cumbersome to use. And in part it's forced by Apple, who puts restrictions on what you can do within a driver.
Yeah.
But also it's lack of willingness to make it more accessible.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, the thing that used to freak me out was when I would print more than one picture, and then a picture would come out, and if it didn't go to the full 24-inch wide, I'd then get a massive paper wastage
Yeah.
on the right-hand side, and
Yeah.
then the other picture comes out underneath it, and I
Right.
may as well just, what?
Yeah.
What? I can't use that paper.
It never made sense to me that if you have a 24-inch roll or even wider roll, that you have to specify a paper size if you want to print something that's smaller than that roll. Why would you want to? The file has a defined size, so why wouldn't you just print it?
So if we just show this, actually, the PDQ, the top one there, these are all your apps.
These are all my apps on the Mac
on the
App
App Store. And PDQ is the one that I used with my 2100.
And there are two versions, so there's three versions right now. So there is a light version, which is free, and it works basically with most models, but I didn't update it lately.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have the latest models of drivers included. And there is the more expensive version, which has built-in capabilities like color management engine built in, which the free one doesn't. And I made a new one over the last year, which is specifically for the Canon Pro series.
Okay.
Because I have one in 44 inch, and I just wanted something to drive that, because that driver was driving me nuts as well.
And that was really cool, because you can then just get all your final images, pick them up, drop them on the software, and it orders them on the paper to get the best paper usage. And then you could go to any one image by clicking on it and then say, yeah, but I want 3 copies of this. And you could even change the size of each copy.
You can rotate them.
And it would then go and then get the best use. It's stunning.
Also
Stunning.
very WYSIWYG. And drivers, if you use a role in more than one job, it never shows WYSIWYG.
I'm going to have to deal with this, I think. At some point, I might have to deal with it. It's sliding.
Well, as long as it doesn't slide under, you should be okay.
Yeah, I'll find an alternative. I'm just trying to think, where have I got a pin that I can pin this?
Yeah.
Anyway, not to worry. You said you've got another. Yeah, I don't want that on the outside of here. That's fine. So that was your first software thing. So that like showed me that there was an evolution from you being a presenter of color management and I guess a technical help technician.
Yeah.
Technical sales on large format printing, and then you moved into this completely different environment where you're writing, where you become a software developer. Yeah.
Which is a complete different kind of work, but I was always making apps that had a link to what I was used to doing.
Yeah.
So they always have a link to color or printing or imaging in general, or they're just jokes like the Trumpetize app or
Trumpets. Tell me about Trumpetize.
Trumpetize is, well, I may lose some audience here, but Trumpetize allows you to have Trump say whatever you like. So it has pre-recorded clips of what Trump has said, and you will get an animation of what you put together in words. But nowadays it's hard to make him say anything that he doesn't say in real life anyway, because he says such weird things anyway.
Well, I mean, look, I went on the BBC homepage today because I always go first thing in the morning, because I say this all the time. It's a bit, to me, the BBC homepage is a bit like, remember teletext? You get home from school and they would just go teletext 101 or 111 or whatever it was, CFAX or teletext, and you just get the headlines, and then you just see if anything big had happened, and then you move on and go out and play. And so I treat the BBC homepage the same, and I see that Boris Johnson has become the prime. There's
a lot of similarities. Strong.
Well, then, do you know what I mean? It's like kind of Trump has now clearly set a trend, because bumbling idiots getting the launch codes.
Yeah, with weird haircuts.
Because okay, they might make policy, and they would have advisors that could steer them, but they actually will have the launch codes.
They do. It's kind of scary.
Don't you have to choose who you put in that position of power?
Well, the public wants it, so I mean, it's
no, but the public. No. But this is my point with this. If an acting prime minister abdicates, which she has done in the UK, well, she was elected by the population.
Yeah, she was.
Her party chose Boris Johnson.
Yes, only 0.1%.
Not the electorate.
Yeah.
So how do you just pass on the PM job just to a mate?
Yeah, it seems to work.
It has to be elected by the people. So if somebody says, I don't want to be Prime Minister anymore, don't you have to have a general election?
I would say it's more logical.
Because a Prime Minister should be elected by the people, not just like chosen from within a party. Yeah. Because it's mad.
Yeah, because I think around 60% of the people in Britain don't approve of him as a Prime Minister right now.
Well, you could take away half of that sentence. You could say 60% of the people just don't approve of him, full stop. I don't know him in any way, and I'm sure he's a really nice guy, but I wouldn't want him...
He'd be fun to have a drink with, I'm sure.
I wouldn't hire him to represent my company.
Yeah.
And that's how I always look at PMs.
Yeah.
Given the fact that the way I look at it is policy doesn't come from them, it comes from their advisors, right? Their cabinet. So what you want is a credible person that goes and represents you and shakes hands with other leaders of other countries who I see as companies, and just doesn't, and represents you in a good way. And then you go and elect this guy who rugby tackles 10-year-old children. Did you see that clip?
In the front of a court.
So anyway, why we've got onto that, I have no idea. How did we get onto that? I don't know how we got onto that. Anyway, but the Trumpetize thing.
How we got there to Trumpetize that.
So anyway, so you've made a whole bunch of stuff, most of which is serious.
Yeah,
I'm looking over here, and I should be looking more like a weatherman over here.
Yeah, because it's here.
Because it's here, not there.
But for us, it's
I've got to fix this mic. So I'm going to let you just tell people what this software does while I fix my mic.
A little bit about all the apps there, maybe shortly.
Yeah, you should do that.
bigger than a printed page, they need to be chopped into tiles, and Picture Tiler does that. So you can have a file that can be 60,000 pixels, and you can chop it into files that are the right size for your printer. Wi-Fi Help is a completely different app. It's just for analyzing Wi-Fi problems that you have and to see what could be the cause of the problems and helping you get a better signal. Color Checker is very specific at using i1 Pro to measure a small target and gives you a approve yes or no in color. So if your printer is profiled correctly and you use Color Checker and you print that and scan that with your i1 Pro, so you need to have an i1 Pro, it will give you a pass if you profile it.
They still sell those?
Yeah, they do. The i1 Pro 2 is still the product that is sold the most.
How much do they retail for?
Around 1,200, I think.
1,200. So if I had a i1 Pro that had never been used, an i1 that had never been used, how much is that worth?
An i1 Pro 1, right? Not a 2.
Yeah.
Well, still probably a couple of hundred.
Cool.
Yeah. Because you never use it.
I've never even opened it.
Well, I did, and I wrote the software for it. So
cool.
That's one.
Cool.
And the other one I did is i1 Delta E, because when I get to customers that have issues with color, it's always good to measure and not discuss colors. Because discussing color differences is very different. It's very difficult because I don't see color the same way you do, and probably everybody else sees something different.
Yeah.
And the device sees something the same. So what that little app does with an i1, you can measure 2 spot colors, and it will give you the delta E, so the difference between the color.
Right.
And you end the discussion, because it would either be a big delta E or it wouldn't be.
Can you see the glassy-eyedness already occurring?
Yeah, I'm sure it does with my glasses. I would prefer not to wear them, but I wouldn't be able to read the text. So.
Okay.
So that's one. And time-lapse movie is also one that could be interesting to photographers. If you want to make a video of time-lapse shots in the native resolution of your camera, you can use time-lapse movie. Because time-lapse movies can be done with most cameras, but they are usually limited to HD.
Okay.
And if you have a camera that has a far higher resolution with time-lapse movie, you can create a movie at 4K or 8K resolution.
Yeah.
If you have enough patience and time. And then PictureMe and PictureMe Pro are basically the ones where...
Which is fundamentally why we're here.
Yeah.
Because when we were having this meal the other day, you talked about this and I just went, what? Because we hadn't kind of seen each other for a little while.
No, we stayed in touch a little bit.
Well, of course we do, but you know, it's like this doesn't have to be every 5 seconds. So, so then you was talking about this, and then this just kind of captured my imagination really, and I keep looking over there when I should be. Look,
it's here.
Whereabouts is it exactly? We should have just put X marks. PictureMe is here. So, in true weather person.
Yeah, we take a look.
And the 39 degrees that we're now currently experiencing over Western Europe. And someone says that global warming isn't true.
Well, today feels different.
I mean, that every country in Western Europe is breaking their records, not by just like points. They're now breaking their records by whole degrees, which when you go back in time, when whole degrees went up.
Yeah. Tomorrow could be the hottest day ever.
Like,
here,
period.
ever.
Period.
Yeah.
So anyway, so yeah, PictureMe. So PictureMe intrigued me because fundamentally, oh look, the horrible shadowy things occurring. Anyway, I'll keep my hand down now. Yeah, because obviously that's what we're doing here. We're doing in a sense, a live cutout, which we've been using in Wirecast for decades now. Yeah. And you've made a program, I guess, slightly, if not leaning towards event-orientated photography.
Yeah, that was my outlook on how to use the particular chroma keying algorithm.
Yeah.
So, I had the idea for a chroma key algorithm, so basically removing a specific color and replacing it by something else.
So as always, when it comes to creativity, because that's why we're here talking about this from my perspective. Obviously, I know Photoshop really well and image manipulation well, so I like to do things by hand, and hair cutouts and stuff I would do by hand. But many photographers, one in particular I know who does events a lot, if you just, once we give the demonstration, have this as a part of your event, Well, then you can't do it in Photoshop. There isn't the time, and you'd lose the will to live if you had to do it that quickly.
I think by definition,
you couldn't.
At events, you don't have the time to use Photoshop to its full extent because you need focus on it. And
so, was it that you
sorry.
Knew of a bunch of APIs and created a vision of a piece of software and then thought, where shall I sell it? Or was it the other way around?
No, it was the other way around. I knew the problem of chroma keying.
Why? How did you know?
Well, I knew it was difficult because I've been using Wirecast like you have for a while, and it's very picky when it comes to selecting the backdrop color.
Yeah, doing it on video is very different to doing it on a single image.
Yeah.
But you were actually working on a project where you needed it yourself, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I needed to have a solution because I wanted to have a solution for it that worked easily and quickly for events. So that was basically why I made it. And it was basically the first app after the PDQ print software that took off and was sold pretty well.
Right.
So it obviously fulfills a need out there.
Yeah.
And it does the job much quicker than you can ever do in Photoshop.
Well, then, after you say that, I think you should show it.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well.
So, just so that you know, there's a Nikon DSLR there on a tripod. It's tethered to this computer.
Yep.
And I'm going to back out.
Yeah, I do need to switch on the camera because I
Oh, yeah. And I'll just let you do your demonstration.
Yeah, so I've already installed it, and this is the app. This is the main interface.
Can you put it in the middle?
Yeah, sure. I can even make it the same size if you want.
I need to just do this for you because these things matter.
Oh yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? They
it's
really
a world
matter.
of difference.
So you just need to go like that and go, Command H,
and
then Command H. So it's all by itself.
Thank you.
With no distraction.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the main interface, and within settings, if your camera is connected, you will see it here, and that means your camera is capable of being tethered. If you see a disk image here, it's either in the wrong mode, so your camera needs to be in PTP mode, Picture Transfer Protocol mode, or if it cannot, then you won't be able to do the tethering part. So the tethering part means that from the main interface,
See, I'm just watching what we're doing, and it needs to be moved over there.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm blocking half the interface.
You was in the way, just a little bit.
Yeah, I know. It's, so now I have the camera set up, and there is a take picture button here which actually captures from the camera. So I'll be looking into the camera lens over there on the tripod, and it takes a picture, and gives me an okay ready the first time, and takes a second picture. That only does it the first time. I always have to remember that, so I have to take one again. So that's me looking at the camera, and you can see it's been chroma keyed automatically.
Sorry,
instantly.
now I'm going to come back because now you've got your picture, because I've got questions.
Right. Oh, feel free to interrupt me.
No, you carry on.
Okay. Well, you can see it's already masked now, so it's done it automatically instantly, and that's the beauty of PictureMe Pro, that it allows you to do this like that. And I can still work on it, so it allows me to brush in it manually, but normally you wouldn't have to. So normally you can use it, but if you have an image that is not completely right yet because you didn't set up the chroma key, you can use these two sliders here. So the top one will, once you take it to the right, at a certain point take away the backdrop until it's gone. And then if you have holes in the subject, you can use the U tolerance slider to get those back. In this case I don't. But you could have some holes because they're fairly close to the limit of your chroma key threshold.
Then you have smooth and preserve eyes as well. So if somebody's got blue eyes in this case.
Yeah, it's got face recognition. You can see the red box around my face. So it recognizes that's my face and will make sure that if I have blue eyes, I don't, but if I had blue eyes like the color of the backdrop screen, then I'd have holes there and you'd get really funky eyes if you put it on the backdrop. So if you do preserve eyes, it will preserve that. I don't have to do it here, but if you do have somebody with particularly bright colored eyes or some piece in their face like lipstick or something in the particular color of your backdrop, then you can use the preserved eyes to make that still work right. The smooth is basically a mask smoothing, so it kind of blurs the mask that I put on it. It doesn't always work great, but if you have a very low-res image with some hair that's difficult to do, you can sometimes get a little bit better result. By default, I don't use it. So if I'm happy with the way it's chroma keyed, I just press OK. And then it takes you to a selection interface for which place you want to go to, so you can move around in the world.
Amsterdam?
Instantly. Yeah, you can go to Amsterdam if
you
want.
Come on.
So we're at the canals.
Cool.
And I can move myself around here, so I can use either the arrow keys to move myself around, and I can scale myself up or down. And once I'm happy with the result, I can save that picture, email it from within the app, so you don't open your email application, but I can just send it to my own email address. And okay, and that would send it directly from here, and now it's actually sent. So for event photography, that's a very quick way to deliver it to customers. Another way would be to print it. So we don't have a printer set up here, but normally you could print it, and you could preset a size like a 2x3 or 4x6 size. Then you can do some more creative things with the backdrop. So if you want to have more like a field of focus control, you can make the backdrop blur more. So there's a slider that allows you to blur the backdrop specifically from the foreground. You can do color changes, so I can make the backdrop, for instance, black and white by taking out the color. Or if you want, adjust brightness and contrast, which you normally wouldn't, but you can. And just be creative in a way that you want. And of course, this is just a preset of files that's in here. So as a user of this software, you are free to add your own backdrops, because if I go to settings, there's folders for backdrops, and if I do view here, it opens that folder, and here you see all the names of all the backdrops I have. There's a JPEG and a PNG. They have the same name. The JPEG is the background, the PNG is the mask. So if I show that one for bands, then the PNG looks like that, because it's the foreground. Yeah. And the other one's just a backdrop. So if you know how to do an image in the right size, you can just create your own backdrop and mask creatively and just add them to a folder, and they're automatically recognized by PictureMe.
You have a lot of people who have downloaded this, right?
Yeah, there's about 2,500 people worldwide that use it. Only like less than 2% in Holland. Yeah. Which is nice about the App Store. It gives me an audience that I would never be able to reach in any other way. Yeah. So there's obviously a need for it.
So what's the difference between Pro and not Pro?
Yeah, good question. The Pro version doesn't have a restriction on the pixel resolution of the files you put in. So and it allows you... Yeah, so there's a price difference, obviously. So that the PictureMe Lite version is only $450.
Let's do something magic.
Yeah, okay. And the Pro version is €22. So I think that's still a very fair price for an app event photography.
Do you really?
Yeah, I think so. But it's not always, because people think that software is free nowadays because the App Store has a lot of free stuff. Yeah. And I don't like that about the App Store, because people have high expectations for very low willingness to pay for it, which is annoying.
But if you're a professional person looking to buy tools, 20, 21, 22 euros is literally very little.
If you do 5 minutes of an event, you should be able to earn that back.
It's half an hour in a bar. Yeah. You know, it's a round of drinks. Yeah.
So
it's
the main difference is the resolution. There's a few other differences. I can show that by looking at the app. The Lite version doesn't have a monitor window. Monitor window is nice that if you have a scene here, and let me select the scene, and you go to settings and you open the monitor window, you get a second monitor. You
can put that on a separate screen, so you could actually have the technical screen facing the user and then have that screen on a monitor facing the customer, so all they see is their picture.
All I see is this, and I can make it full screen. I won't do that because it might mess up your Wirecast.
No, you don't want to do that.
But you could show it full screen, and all they see is the image that you're composing. So
one thing that you said that really interested me was that you can predict where the person's face is going to be within the picture.
Yeah, I didn't explain that. Let me show you where it's done. So if I look at my backdrop folder again, you can see those odd numbers there. So it's Amsterdam 75, 40, 10. So that means the double underscore separates the name from the percentage from the left. So 75% from the left and 40% from the top.
So these are coordinates.
Coordinates.
I
from the
change those
top left.
figures, and then that's where
It shows up different.
it places.
Yeah. So
Does it place the face?
yeah, it places the face
The
of the
center of the
person you
face.
select. So if you have multiple people, you can select the one that will be centered.
Yeah.
And then it centers that person on that particular spot, which makes it easier if you have a backdrop that doesn't allow the person to be right in the center, but has to be on the side, because in the center there's the main topic.
Yeah.
Then you want them to be moved, and then you don't have to manually move them all the time.
So you've kind of, in a sense, got an automatic placement.
Yeah.
Which you're only going to micro adjust maybe
Yeah.
from person to person.
And if you don't
Which is
want to,
quite
you
cool.
just leave them out, because if they don't have a double underscore and they're just named Amsterdam.jpg and Amsterdam.png,
It places it in the middle.
in the
of it?
middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, which works for most
Cool.
occurrences.
Cool.
So this is just configuration part for email. I'm using the built-in email for those who don't know how to set up their email account, but you can also set up your own email server and have emails sent from your own email address rather than one from AppForce One.
Yeah.
Printing preferences well, basically in picture, I didn't show everything. You can also load pictures. So instead of tethering, you can also load pictures with multiple people. So,
Yeah, that one with multiple people was very useful.
so this one shows that it has 5 faces, which is correct, and they are numbered left to right. So if I want that girl to be the focal point, then I'd have to choose number 3, and you can see that the box moves to her face. And you can see that it works on green, but it works on all colors. So I can also use something like a blue color. It's not picky when it comes to colors. It just reads the top line of color, and if you want to, you can overrule that by clicking somewhere. So if I want this to be the color, then I chroma key her skin.
Yeah.
I can just click on the color, and it uses that as a key color, chroma key color. That's for those compositions where the top line somehow isn't the right color. Then you can just manually choose it. And it also works with more difficult colors, because this one, I know that if you were to do a cutout in Photoshop, you might use something like what's based on the green or the blue channel.
No,
if you do that,
sometimes.
sometimes you would, but in this case you'd be having a problem, because this time the skin tone and the backdrop color aren't completely different. They are different in chroma, but they are in the same channels.
You use a green channel on that one.
You could. You could. But I could choose a color. Well, let me choose a different one.
No, I'm just
Well,
saying
let me
that
choose this
you know
one then.
you would know.
Could
and
you
then-
still do that in this one?
Yeah.
You could?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you have to show me that later on.
Yeah, because that's the background is primarily kind of it's leaning more towards magenta than red. So that, in my mind, just sets a frequency of those channels, and then I just look at the person on the inside. So the yellow, there would be a good yellow.
Right.
There.
Okay. Right. Well, that's the difference between you and a lot of people. You can think in color and know where to
But
go.
look, it's not because I was born that way.
No, you learned it.
I was forced to learn it.
Yeah.
And I think that's fundamentally the problem today. You're not really forced anymore to learn anything, because just like you, you're doing it for us. So but it is for a specific thing.
Yeah.
But my interest in this is further than what you're doing, because that's what pricked my ears up, because of the problems I know many of the members have a problem with in their photographic studios and stuff. So we'll deal with that later.
Yeah, it's. I'm not claiming that I can do it better than you can do in Photoshop. I'm sure it's not.
Oh, but doing it in Photoshop is not even a starter when you're doing events.
No.
You can't have somebody sat behind a wall, sitting there mucking around in Photoshop trying to create a cutout. That's ridiculous.
Besides, you'd need a Photoshop operator.
But just what is cutting us out right now, very effectively.
Yeah.
Obviously, the reason why we've got the shadow is because I'm really close to the thing, and he's not. If I was actually at the same point,
then we'd be fine.
Then we'd be like that. But
we don't want to be that
here,
cozy.
and I've got some kind of shadowy thing here.
Yeah,
but
that's a good comment, because in chroma keying, so if you do green screen or blue screen photography, it's important not to have the subject stand up to the screen.
Absolutely.
Because you get reflections of color on them, of the backdrop, and you get shadows.
Well, I mean, fundamentally, that's one of the reasons why I'm actually living in Holland, because the job that I helped my friend with, a member, he wasn't a friend at that time, he was a member that contacted me and said, I did this job with a green screen and I've got green spill through everything.
Yeah.
Can you help?
Yeah.
So I just said, look, I'll do it for you. So I fixed it all and sent it back, and he went, wow, thanks.
Yeah.
And then sent me another problem with it, which was moire in the suits and stuff. Can you fix moire? Yeah. And then like we got to know each other, became friends, and now I live here.
Right.
But it was the green screen spilling.
Yeah. And it happens. I just loaded samples from the web, and I think there's one here that shows it. I'm not sure if I have that one on there. No, I don't have that one on there. But if you look at most of the pictures that are taken in a green screen studio, then everything has a green cast.
Yeah, I mean, this one here would be the worst case scenario for me.
That one's actually not bad. It wasn't
No,
done bad.
that works well on your software.
Yeah.
But the unevenness of the green screen.
Yeah, that makes it harder to chroma key it. But in the software, it's fine because my algorithm doesn't mind if there's a shadow.
It doesn't mind, does it? Does it sit there and go, and it interprets the images?
I wrote it that it's sensitive to some other things, but not
as long as you feed it well. Okay. So
no,
can you show me on that one? Show me on that one.
Yeah, sure. It's my history in imaging that makes it.
I need to rethink where my screen is, because this is making me look off the screen, because the monitor we're looking at is over there anyway. Oh, that's perfect.
So it's pretty much perfect, spot on immediately. You don't need to do anything.
Show me with a background.
With a background on it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Looks perfectly fine.
And just make it much bigger. Oh, that's sexy as hell.
Still pretty good.
Yeah, it's cool.
And of course, you could argue that this particular point in her hair doesn't look like it's hair.
So one little observation I have here is that the backdrop establishes the resolution of the file.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
In the Pro version, you can put in, if you want, a 8,000 pixels wide file. It would just make things slower. And you need to think about what you're doing.
And then your picture would come in smaller and you'd have to enlarge.
No, it'd scale it up. It would still scale it up.
It scales it automatically.
Yeah, because you define it by percentages. So it goes to 75% of the picture in all pictures. But the downside of using a really high resolution is processing time. Because if you make the picture twice as big, it will take 4 times longer to process. And then your sliders become really slow. So it's important, if you know that you're going to be doing a 2x3 print, that you don't use.
But the whole point of
megapixels.
the whole point of this for the vast majority of people who use it is that you will configure it once. X will mark the spot where your victim is going to stand, and then that person's going to come in, stand, take the picture, and then it's going to be done. Yeah, it's all about the workflow of the automation.
It's for speed. If you have to bother for 2 minutes getting the composition and the keying right, it won't work during any.
All I would want to do is simply have a monitor facing the victim. And then just email the picture to me, thank you very much, or print it, as many people would at the time. It's really cool. Yeah,
and I think I'm thinking about some other options, but I'm not sure if there's a demand for it. I'm thinking about options like adding an FTP server where it would upload to automatically, so people can look at it later.
Absolutely, you should do that.
That could be interesting.
Yeah. I would also make it that when you say email the picture, that just as an event, say, coordinator here, I would, if I was going to have the audience, say, facing a monitor, which is only showing them that kind of the preview monitor, that when you say email, the email box comes up in the preview monitor, so then someone can type in their own email rather than having to tell me what their email is. Because then you could have a keyboard underneath it, and they can just type in their own email, because everybody types in their email by reflex.
That could be part of the upload. So if you do an FTP upload automatically after you take the picture, you could have a web interface that uses that picture that allows them to select it and then email it, or download it, or whatever they want to do with it.
Yeah, having an FTP place to be able to go and get the digital file would be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
might add that,
I know
but-
loads of people
But
who
there's always,
would use this.
I can add like thousands of things to applications, but I'm always like, is there really demand for it? And it's always difficult for me to know if there is. So I'm always keen on getting feedback from people saying, oh, can you add this to it, or can you add that to it? Because I
Right.
really love that.
Right, okay.
And it's
Okay.
just like the other day, I had some problems positioning a file, and then I thought, why am I continuously struggling with the mouse? Why not add the keyboard to it? So it's much easier to move
I would
around.
use the keyboard.
Yeah, because if you're at an event, it's easier to use a keyboard because it's faster.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
a lot of people don't know how to use a trackpad anyway, so if they would have to have a mouse, which is not convenient at an event.
Yeah.
So it makes more sense. So
Hmm.
as you go along, you make more features and just add them.
It's damn cool. It's really cool.
I think it serves a purpose, and it was a challenge to me to do the chroma key algorithm, because that's the biggest challenge to do an algorithm that's fast and works on all images.
No, that, yeah, I mean, I know a number of people who, around a coffee table or around a business meeting with their client, would envisage doing this.
Yep.
But the technical wall of how long it would take to do each image would inhibit somebody going, you know what, yeah,
Definitely.
we should do it.
Yeah.
I mean, prohibit.
Yeah.
It would be prohibitive.
Yeah.
The technical expertise needed on an image by image basis
It would take too long.
would be prohibitive
Yeah.
and would take way too long.
I've seen this being done at a Canon event for resellers.
Right.
And they had actually operators with 2 Photoshop stations, had 2 operators processing all the images. And you still had to wait 15 minutes before your shot was ready. That was, I don't think I got the idea then because I already was working on it then. But that proved to me that you need an application for that and not try to do it in Photoshop at an event.
And the first time I ever saw green screen, or the first time I ever took blue screen or green screen seriously was when I was then demonstrating After Effects. And it had always been obviously something that was a part of our vocabulary when we were doing video editing or video capture and video editing. But then when it comes to doing still image cutouts, it's a completely different science.
Yeah.
Well, why not have the same? Why are that? And if you've got all the algorithms inside After Effects and Premiere and Final Cut Pro and stuff for doing green screen, and it's really quite cool. And this piece of software right now does it live, because doing it live is completely different to doing it in post-production.
Yeah.
So although it's fundamentally doing the same thing, it doesn't have, I mean, when we're doing this as a live broadcast and it's doing a cutout at the same time, that's a different engine than sitting there with a 4K file and then doing the green screen afterwards.
Yeah.
And so so the first time I ever did green screening was actually not even on video, it was on an image. And then we made it 72 DPI and we brought it into After Effects so we could use the algorithm in After Effects to do the green screening.
Right.
Then we exported it with a transparent background, changed the resolution, got it back into Photoshop, and it was perfect. How stupid is that when somebody could...
Roundabout way.
Has anybody ever put... I don't know, because I don't seek knowledge of green screening or auto cutouts. I don't like auto cutouts for me, because I like... It's one of the interesting parts of my job to interpret the file and develop my skills, because each time you get presented with a cutout that you go, oh my god, that one's going to be difficult. I like that.
Yeah.
I want to find the solution.
Yeah. Like hair that's waving around. That's a challenge, and for my software too, because there are only certain parts of the hair which are perfect in the image. So some will have the right color, and some will turn green, just your camera doesn't capture the
Yeah, well, we
hair
discussed
color.
this the other day when we were talking about doing this, because the things that sometimes you have to do when if I get given an image which has been taken on a blue or a green screen, and then obviously you have hairs which are in focus, but hair is a tiny strand of data. And depending on the resolution of your camera, the actual hair could be 1 or maybe even only 2 pixels of opacity, and then you've got the anti-aliasing on the outside, and that's only if it's sharp.
Yeah.
And then with the large aperture, high bokeh images that we like to take now, you're going to get the eye sharp, but the hair at the back is going to be soft, and then that's an entirely different thing, because the hair becomes translucent then. So There's steps that you have to go through as a retoucher to make it look perfect. I haven't found an easy. I mean,
No.
I haven't found a quick way.
No.
It's a very easy thing to do once you learn the sequence, but it's still a manual process.
Yeah.
Because how the hair reacts is based on what you're going to put it on top of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's,
so you
that's
have
also
to.
when you notice it. Because
You have to wait until you put the backdrop in.
And then you see it's wrong.
And exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And blonde hair, hardest hair of all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful, but it's difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because as soon as it goes translucent, then you can see the background through the hair because
Yeah.
it's out of focus and blurry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's also why, as sort of a cheat, if I go back here to the example picture, I use this picture because it has hardly any hair at the sides. But it does have something else interesting, which is the holes in the hat.
Yeah.
So her hat is transparent in these little holes, but not here, because that's her
Yeah.
head.
Yeah.
And her hair is beyond that.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do that in Photoshop manually, good luck with that. You will never get it. You'd have to do it with algorithms.
Well, you
smart
can
ways.
get it, but the problem is it's a manual process,
Yeah.
and then which is always my problem with anything I teach. How you do it is only specific to that image.
Yeah.
And then people write down the instructions, and then they go and get a completely different image
it
and go,
doesn't work.
your technique doesn't work. And it's, well, the image has changed.
Yeah, but I
monkey.
had the same thing in PictureMe. I've had people actually complaining. They took a picture against a random backdrop, no green, no blue, nothing.
they didn't
And
put
they
a
said
green.
It doesn't work. Because people don't understand the term chroma key, at least not all of them, that
Yeah.
go to the App Store because it's open to the
Did
public.
you change the wording on the?
I tried to make it more accurate and actually say you do need a green or blue or any color screen that is actually different from the subject.
So that 1 or 2 1-star rating really pisses you off, right?
Yeah, it's annoying because that's the people that give you reviews and give you 1-star ratings.
Just because it didn't work with
Yeah.
one click of a button.
Yeah, and instead of them contacting you, they find it much more satisfying to just give you a bad review for some reason. I don't know why that is. Because they just spend money, and if they would read, they wouldn't have to
Well,
spend the money.
you would think that they would inquire.
Yeah, before.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You would inquire as to why does this not meet my expectations?
Yeah, I would. I would. If,
I
if
would
I
ask
would first
first.
read probably, but if I didn't, I would
Yeah.
probably ask why it doesn't work if it doesn't.
Yeah.
And most of them don't. The bad reviews.
But the giving a bad review is actually quite a big subject for me.
Yeah.
I would never give a bad review to anything
No.
because the responsibility of a bad review is really big.
Yeah.
Because one bad one
Oh, it
can
negates-
outweigh 100 good ones.
Definitely, yeah. I've had people that said I was very worried this might not work because reading the reviews. But I'm glad it does. That's what you get then.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
the people that don't think, they just
But I
post a
think
bad
in
review.
in time, once you get a bit savvy with the internet, you understand the word outliers,
Yeah.
and you take the mean average, isn't it? You discount the top
Yeah.
10, you discount the bottom 10, and you just say, I think the solid thing in the middle is really good.
Basically,
And you see this a lot in reviews. You see big bars at the top, and then there's a massive gap of 4s, 3s and 2s. There's nothing, and then there's a few 1s, and then there are 5s and 6s. Well, I think that kind of pretty much.
The 5-star reviews are usually bought. That's usually the case. I mean, it's not often that you get a 5-star review because nothing is really perfect. So you usually get 4 stars if something is
Maybe
close
you're
to
right.
perfect.
Maybe before you can give a review, or when you buy software, you should put your IQ in.
Well, maybe we could have
It's only a
IQ
random.
test.
It's just a random thought that
So
I'm having.
get some questions answered before, and if you fail, you can't.
Because you want to qualify. There's no qualification for
No.
reviews.
No.
This is the problem, and it's really hard to get rid of them. If you get an unjust bad review,
I cannot get rid of it.
there's nothing you can do.
No, the only thing I can get rid of, if there's something racist or sexist in it, then I can get rid of it.
What, in the green screen software?
Well, if their comments are like that, that's the only way I can get rid of a review.
It doesn't work on a Smurf.
That way I don't know if that's racist.
We use a green screen.
Put a Smurf against a green screen, it works.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, actually, it does work for non-human people as well, subjects as well.
Non-human
I mean,
people.
Use non-human people.
Non-human people.
It works perfectly on this one as well. So it's an owl, and you can recover. Well, it's a bit more picky on doing it, but it works.
Yeah, but that's a natural background. That's not.
That's a normal green. That's just the focus of your camera.
Yeah, that's not a green screen.
No, but it's also nice that it works.
of course.
Because you can just put this owl wherever you want to. And that owl's not native there, so.
Just wherever you want to, no limitations. I wouldn't go anywhere near that thing. Look at its face.
If it was that big,
It's just going, touch me, go on, I dare you, touch me, go on. No, it's damn fine. It's damn fine. I know, and you know, all joking aside, because I can't help but have a laugh. At these temperatures, what else can you do?
Yeah, well, you gotta have a little bit of fun too. Right? Can't be all serious.
Yeah, there's 2 people I know who would use this, and that I'm hoping that if I get this under their noses by doing this, that because I know I've had these conversations with them in the past. They do event photography, and to be able to use something like this to just add another dimension. It wouldn't even be used maybe every single time, but it's just a way of spicing up what you do if you're an event photographer.
Yeah, you don't have to change your profession, but if you happen to have an event where you could use this, why not? You might have someone else manning that camera while you are taking pictures. At a wedding, for instance, it's great to have at a wedding or a party, because people want the photographer there anyway, but the photographer is going to be busy just taking pictures. If you can add this to the scene, all you need is a green screen and a tripod and somebody that can press the take picture button. You don't need a photographer there. Makes it easier.
Yeah, that's cool. So my my extended interest to this is obviously what we talked about the other day, which is I was involved in retouching an image in the last month for somebody who had a new person join the company, and they had to get another mugshot and then go into an existing style. We all know the page where you say our team, and you need continuity. And the first thing that people notice with a lack of continuity is the backgrounds are different. You know, okay, the lighting on the object can be different, and that can, to some people, they might go, oh, look, that lighting's slightly different, maybe, but consumers are not going to do that. But if the background is a different shade or uneven, you'll notice that immediately. So having exactly the same, slightly off white, because you can't have it completely white, because then you don't see it's a circle or a square or whatever element they're putting it in. So using this on that basis, to me, opens up its use. So the passport kind of thing where you just want to then have that person in a circle, but then have a level of, say, 224 or something in the background, so it's universal.
If you want just an even color, you can just put a backdrop of that color in and have those pictures created automatically.
This would work perfect for that.
But then maybe an addition in the future could be that I don't need a chroma key screen, but could actually do that against a almost white backdrop.
Well, I mean, it will work on any color, because you can choose the color, right? So it doesn't, I mean, there is a default that it works on blue and green as a chroma, but then you can use a picker to choose anything. So like these are not true, you can't see them obviously, but this is a blue screen behind us. And this is just
the color of the sky you see there. So about the sign of the sky.
It's kind of similar. This is actually my highlight color on my website.
So this is not a blue or green screen.
No,
but it works
the
fine.
blue one up there is the one that I used to use for my cutouts. But because of the limits, actually the reason, and I'll give you this live, the reason why I don't use the darker blue one is because it puts a darker, more prominent blue halo, because this is not easy to get rid of the absolute fine anti-aliased edge of blue. So what I choose is something that is less blue.
It's closer to white.
That is closer more to neutral, so that way here, even on my baldy head, there's not much of a blue halo running around me.
Well, your head is easier than mine because of the hair.
But the thing is, if I get it wrong and I don't set the eye picker correct, the picker every time, because every single time I set this up, I have to go in after half an hour and click on it, and it always chooses a different color. And as soon as you click, it then just goes tighter. It's really cool.
The chroma key algorithm for video is different. It cannot use a wide tolerance I use in PictureMe. because it uses different
It
principle.
doesn't have the computation
No.
power because
Because
obviously
you have to do live
it's
frames.
having to do live frames.
Yeah.
And,
If you do 30 frames a second, you can see that I can't do 30 frames
yeah,
a
and
second.
that's why I put the time and effort into lighting here when you said that it's better in here than what you do, because
Yeah.
the problem here, you have to fix it at source.
Yeah.
And I learnt that from the very first video editing job that I did with a green screen.
Right.
I was there on the shoot, and the photographer lit the green screen different to the subject.
Mm-hmm.
We had an interview, film footage of just interviews of people, and had a green screen behind. The person was too close, and then they also tried to light the green screen behind.
Yeah.
And they put the lights too close, so then you've got hot spots in it. And then the more light you have, it reduces the hue, so the effectiveness of the algorithm goes out the window. So underlighting it was much better than overlighting it, because all you want is as even as flat as you can get.
Yeah. As long as it's not a different color. I mean, it doesn't have to be bright or even.
It's the hue you don't want to diminish. Whether the hue is a dark green or a dark blue or a light, having it darker is actually better.
Exactly. Yeah. Because although it's called green screen, blue screen photography, I'm not using green or blue. I'm not using the RGB values of the particular pixels. I'm looking at the chroma value.
Yeah, and your algorithm actually looks at whatever the customer uses as the backdrop, because it interrogates the file, chooses what the background is, and then bases the chroma keying on that background color.
It made sense to me to do it automatic, because normally in a chroma key setup, the top line of your image would be the backdrop, or at least as close as possible to the backdrop. It wouldn't be perfect, but it'd be pretty close to the average, because you go left to right, so you have some variance in lighting. It averages the color and picks that by default. And you can just overrule it using your mouse to choose a different color.
Cool. It's quite an evolution, isn't it, really, for you, when you think about it, from a timeline point of view, when I first met you.
Yeah, I remember a time
you was the geek on stage who did color management.
Yeah, I know. Well, I remember getting a standing ovation for explaining how profiling was automatic on a certain printer series. And there's one guy in the audience who knew a bit more about color management actually stood up and said, "You realize it's really fundamentally changing how printing works if you can do that automatically." And I agreed with it, because it makes it better in any way possible. But it was never really brought to the market in a way that was successful.
But I mean, look, all I can say is, and it's with the greatest of is it the greatest of respect? No, there's no respect. They're a bunch of monkeys. If you build something that is so cool and so needed and checks the boxes of what most people are looking for, please just take color management away from me so I don't have to think about it, please. I don't need to be an expert in color management.
Why would anyone want to be?
No. And then when you told me to buy the Z2100 photo printer, and it came, and then I bought it from Jigsaw in the UK before, obviously, they went bust, and there was a deal on it. I think it was £1,000 back then. This is a long time ago. And there was like 20% off or something. So like within a week, it turns up in Ireland. We unbox it, and then you were on the phone showing, or on Skype showing me what buttons to press in the software to get it to auto profile. And there was the print just using the standard profiles was more than commercially acceptable.
Oh,
it was perfectly okay.
There's nothing wrong with factory
But as soon as you then take a piece of paper and then profile that piece of paper, your print is 10% better every single time.
It's very comparable to what you do. If you just use Photoshop with its normal features, you can get an okay result. But if you do it to its full capacity like you do, you get something that's much better. Yeah,
but sometimes that envelope that you have to step outside of using its basic features is a long time of learning.
Yes.
Or when it comes to color management, it's not only learning, but it's buying of equipment.
And that's the advantage in this.
Because the reason I have to admit, the reason why I just despise color management when it is done manually by a person is that it's not consistent.
No.
So I can't put any assurance into a system that means I have to go to a printer, give it a target, then I have to wait for it to dry, and then I get hold of it, and then I go calibrate, zig, 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 and then I end up with X or A, profile A.
Yeah.
And then I come back to it an hour later, and I do exactly the same thing, and I get a different result.
Yep.
on that basis, I'm not interested.
Well, you're right. I mean, it
Having
helps.
it inside the hardware.
It makes a lot of sense to put it there, so you're not bothered by it.
And as soon as I saw that happening, I just went, how can this not be a part of every single printer? And at that time, that was the very first printer I'd ever even heard that it had built-in profiling, not calibration. And
well, since then, both Epson and Canon have made printers, specific printers that can do the same with a add-on.
Yeah, but they keep it as a higher end.
Yeah, you pay $1,200 extra to get that piece of hardware, and nobody does.
And my printer was less than the add-on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole ridiculous thing.
So was it more that they actually built this thing and then we're giving it away?
Well,
do you think?
I think that the advantage of Hewlett-Packard over Epson and Canon is that Hewlett-Packard has always been very good at producing something at very low cost, because a lot of plastic is used instead of steel.
Right. Okay.
And they're just smarter at producing something low cost.
Well,
and Canon and Epson.
I was an Epson person because I came from the design and print industry. So I only wanted to be associated with brands that elevated me, obviously, in those days.
And that would be Epson.
And that Epson, you just want to be associated. Oh, it's an Epson print. It's an Epson print. Yeah. And then when you hold up a print, no one can tell what printer it came from.
No.
Until I started realizing all these things and this brand loyalty that I had, which was only feeding my ego rather than the practicality of the print. Yeah. So when you then said HP, it was when I met you and it was HP, it was always like, that's the guy who works for that substandard kind of PC, because from our industry it was all Mac orientated, and HP was the kind of printers you saw in offices in administrative.
I often had to struggle to get HP to do something for Mac. And because they were focused on PC.
Well, within I think a week, I was completely and utterly sold, and the benefits of the biggest benefit for me on that printer was because I'd had numerous, let's just say, other printers that use different technology. I've already named the names. If I had one of those printers and just turned it off and left it off for 6 months, I'd be putting it in the skip.
Yeah.
Because it's not cost effective to have it repaired.
Yeah.
So you just buy another one. Yeah. Just because you didn't use it for 6 months, you didn't turn it on.
Yeah.
If you want to keep it working, you have to actually leave it on standby so it purges, and then obviously it's throwing away that commodity that is more expensive than gold, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's still different per brand. So
but with HP, I left mine off. I left mine off once for 2 years. I didn't use it, and I just went. This will be fun. And then when I turned it on, it obviously said the inks had expired. And I remember calling you, and you told me, "Yeah, but you can override that."
Go ahead.
So you just say, "Go ahead and use it anyway." And it worked perfectly after not being turned on for 2 years with no lines, no nothing, no stuttering, no calibration, no nothing. I just went, "Let's do a print and see what happens." And it came out, it was flawless.
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen on anybody else's
that
I know of.
I've thrown away a printer of another brand, I won't name the brand, that I had put out at a customer to help them out. I had it there for half a year, got it back, I could throw it away. I could not clean it. There was air in the tubes everywhere. It was completely wasted.
So for me, I mean, all I say to people is that if you take exactly the same file and you put it on a really good, let's say HP printer or Canon printer and
they're all good.
Epson printer, and put them on the wall and ask an expert to say which one, no one would be able to put them in. No one would be able to correlate them to where they came from. So the purchasing decision's got nothing to do with quality. They all meet the criteria of quality.
There used to be a time that was different.
For me, they used to be the same as with computers and the same with cameras. But now you can't buy a bad camera now. It's all about the miscellaneous features that make it more suitable to you than not. But they all take a really good shot. They all do it in a slightly different way. But again, if you just put an image straight off of a raw file and print it out, there is not a single photographic person on the planet that would be able to, with a certainty, tell me which camera took that shot.
Right.
Not one.
No, and the same
because no camera leaves a lasting trait within the image. So it's all about the other stuff. And so the other stuff, when it comes to buying a printer, all made sense to me. The economics of how much ink is thrown away just making sure this thing is working. With a HP, nothing. No, I can leave it turned off.
The lack within Epson to have a print head for black and matte black ink, photo black and matte black ink. I never understood that. Well, I understand it slightly because it's more expensive to make an Epson head than it is a Canon or an HP. But when you switch inks, you still throw away money. Not as much as you used to. You used to throw away 20, 30 euros of ink when you switch from matte to photo.
Right.
And now you spend a few euros. But still, you're wasting ink.
I can't remember if it was a conversation with you, but I remember running around for a while recounting this statement, that the thing that I loved the most about my HP was the black and whites were black and white.
They were truly neutral.
Yeah, because you told me that on other people's print algorithms that neutral is made up of the coloured inks.
Yeah.
So with a microscope, when you look in, it actually uses the colour inks underneath the black, which then can make your black have a green hue or a blue hue or an orange hue. And then on my Epson, on my HP, I mean, whenever anybody came to the seminars at our studio, they would look at these black and whites I'd leave out and they go, I've never seen anything like it. And then when you've got the extra brightness of the paper, which gives it that extra dynamic range, you've got a true black and white.
Yeah. Yeah, there has been a time, they fixed it over the years, but there's been a time where Epson had a significant problem creating black and white to begin with, because under normal daylight it would not be black. It would get a color. Just
because it has color. It has color within it.
It has color under it, because under the black there's cyan ink. So you'd see that ink in color. And it's gotten better, but it's still, if you don't profile it correctly,
you're going to have to watch. You're going to have to read the comments underneath it. Should we turn off the comments for this video? No. We need them. We need them, don't we?
I'd like them. I mean, I know that people
well,
argue
these things must change, but is it still the same?
No, it's not as bad anymore. They fixed the inks to make it better.
Right. Okay.
So the difference between the three big brands now in quality is negligible.
Yeah, I mean they all do. So for me, the purchasing decision has got nothing to do with the quality.
No.
It's all about how much does it cost per print, and how reliable is my printer, and at what point in time in the future, and under how I behave with my printer, whether I use it every day or whether I use it just once a month, am I increasing the likelihood of everything clogging up and solidifying inside that causes me economically to have to buy a new printer? I don't want that.
No.
And on that basis, I know where I want to buy.
Yeah, although it's a shame, because we're talking positive about HP, let's also talk something negative. It's a shame they did not
You want to do this
evaluate.
knife thing, isn't
Well,
it?
what I don't like is they had this technology in 2006. So why didn't they make new generations of printers that use the same principle that are just better than what they had then?
Because the market didn't require them to.
That's the thing, but they also did not capture that market, so they did something wrong.
Yeah,
Because
but
Epson
companies not knowing the true value of what they've got at their disposal is not a new subject, right?
It's common. Right.
So Apple and Aperture and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just throwing it away because
we don't have market share, and so we're not interested in playing in a market where we don't dominate.
Yeah.
And so having a 6% market share of the PC market, you've been using that as a positive elitist model in marketing, but because you don't have the majority of people using Aperture on Macs, then you'll just not bother.
Yeah.
And that never made any sense to me.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame. But anyway, it's dead now. It's cool.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
But I'm sure they'll make some new printers at some time again. But at this point, you're stuck with basically the same printers as you have been getting for 5 6 years.
There's a Canon printer there.
Yeah.
And there's only a Canon printer there because I went on after my positive thing with the HP that you pushed me into, when I was looking for a smaller size printer that could do quite good quality prints. I naturally, brand loyalty, I've had a good experience with this brand. Bowdy's the man. He proved it. So I then go off to HP trying to find something to fit my niche that had nothing.
Yeah.
So I had to go and get that, which is a Canon, and that's really cool.
Well, to me, though, it surprised me that Canon has never been able to capitalize on the fact that they're also the big brand in photography, to link that up with their printing part. Yeah. Because they're still not doing it.
I'd say kind of slightly past tense now, maybe.
Maybe so,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're losing ground.
I wouldn't say they're increasing their market share at the moment.
No, but they still have the name. with a lot
Oh,
of
absolutely,
photographers.
absolutely.
But like Epson has the name with photographers for printers.
Most Canon users I know tolerate. They tolerate the camera backs because of the investment in their lenses.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
so
don't
more
give
than
a
tolerate.
damn about the camera back.
Right.
What they care about is the glass.
Yeah.
And they see some of the new things which are out there at the moment, and they go, "Oh my god!" And then their first thought is, "What about my lenses?"
Uh-huh. Yeah.
The emotional attachment and the
Yeah.
practical attachment is, or the association with quality is with the lens.
Mm.
Very little to do with the camera back.
Yeah.
And like you said, when you saw my little Sony there, you went, "Nice lens."
Yeah, I don't look at the camera. I look at the lens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it is a very nice lens.
Yeah.
It's cool. So this is, I'm just intrigued. I see this being, I don't actually do event photography. I
No.
just know people who do.
Yeah.
And a few of them will see this, and I'm sure a few of those people will download it. I have no doubt. My curiosity with this is portrait photographers who have to concern themselves with lighting the background.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's some people who want to have a tone in the background,
Yeah.
and they've come away from the old traditional way of white portrait photography, where you would light the scene so that the background was eliminated. You could do that really, really effectively with film,
Mm-hmm.
because it had a very, very, very smooth transition from nothing to something.
Yeah.
And digital doesn't.
No.
So it is an art to light a studio so you get a shadow underneath someone falling away into nothing. There's more skill in getting that correct than there is actually lighting the subject matter.
Right. Right. Okay.
And so I see this in many cases, which is what we're going to talk about. So there will be a part 2 of this, without any doubt, at some point in the future. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this, and then I'm going to start trying to use this in portrait photography,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can put your time and effort into lighting the subject matter.
Yeah.
You still have to put some effort into the background, but change your philosophy of lighting the background,
Yeah.
and let this software do the outline, the cutout.
Right.
And then you can superimpose in your own background.
Yeah. But you would like to have also shadow added to that.
That's a lot harder. And
That's more difficult.
that doesn't mean that it's not something to look at, but there are many people who do head and shoulders. Head and shoulders is a really, really
Yeah.
big part of life.
Yeah.
And you need continuity.
And you prefer speed and not have to spend much time.
Yeah, and fundamentally, if you could have a workflow where because most people would have a studio which would be a multi-purpose studio, and they set it up for this shot, and then they get a different type of work. It all gets changed, and then next morning you've got to go back to headshots again.
Yeah.
And then you've got to put it all back together again.
Yeah.
And then you get inconsistency.
Yeah.
If you had, all you had to do was put 90% of your effort into lighting the subject and less into the background, because the background is actually going to be superimposed in.
And it's a lot easier.
And having your software create the cutouts, eliminating my need to have to go into Photoshop and do
Right.
it.
So that would be like a slightly different version of what I've done here. That would be more focused on getting the file out rather than making a composition.
No, it'd still be a composition.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I would have it, because what people want is continuity. You want standardization.
Yeah.
And the backdrop is actually optically equally as important as the quality of the subject matter.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you see two things on a page,
Mhm.
then you're going to compare them. And if
Yeah.
the background's different.
Yeah, you'll notice.
And I was only talking to a web member the other day who was trying to actually photograph the scene to get the background right, so he didn't have to get the background right in Photoshop. So he was
Yeah.
trying to do it and that, what? Yeah, cutout. And if this will do a cutout to a much higher level, which
Mhm.
is what I believe it will do, and can eliminate the background of your studio shot, ironing out all the imperfections
Yeah.
of lighting,
Well,
giving you a really nice sculpted
Yeah.
background.
I could see a slightly modified version of what I have now that's optimized for that. giving you more freedom of what you use as backdrops? Because
Yeah.
you'd prefer to use white as a backdrop.
You pretty much would have to. You wouldn't want to be instilling in people that
No.
or insisting that you had to put a colour in the background.
So the
But
current
you
algorithm,
could make it. You could make it work. You could make it work like that. It's just
it's more
cumbersome.
cumbersome because
But
there's always white.
separating an already white background from an object in front of it, all it does is more narrow a gamut that you can play with.
Yeah.
But if you have the algorithms already that do it, then and the level of accuracy that it has to work with is a lot less because the background's already the same color as the background that it's going in on.
Yeah,
So
that's very true, because the problem you have with chroma keying, if you look at details, is that the details, they lack the definition. So you see where the edges are of hair.
Yeah.
'Cause
you
little
would want
strands
to
of hair-
retain every single edge
Yeah.
instead of do the opposite. Because when you've got hair in front of blue, you actually have to choke the mask a
Yeah.
little bit to eliminate
Yeah,
just
you
a
have to
tiny.
take it out.
You have to take it out.
Yeah.
But the thing is, white on white, you wouldn't because
No,
you're going to
because
put
it
it
doesn't
back
have
on
a
a white
color cast.
background, but then
Right.
you would just have this
Yeah.
beautiful continuity in your shots.
The challenge that would be when using a white backdrop is obviously not to lose white within the subject. So any highlights in eye whites or just shiny
Yeah,
parts of
yeah,
faces,
yeah.
they wouldn't need to be gaps. So you need to make sure that those are still part of the
Mm.
picture. So I would think I would probably alter the algorithm for that. But I could probably do something that does something based on white and
Well,
make it
that's what
white.
I will be testing this on anyway.
Right.
Even what you've already got, I know will work with most of the images that I have
Yeah.
from my archive. And
Yeah.
I want to see how it works with that.
Yeah.
So we
But-
should definitely do a part 2 of this.
And I'd be interested to see what you can do, what the software cannot. So how you could take an image in Photoshop and the hairs that I have to cut out because I cannot get them right,
Yeah.
you would make correct.
Well, this is my only kind of, I guess this is my problem with having software that does my job for me. It's easy to argue for when it gets it right.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's when it doesn't get it right.
Right.
Because when you take your foot off the pedal, i.e., I mean, you take your focus of attention away because you just presume it's going to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
You're not then aware when it gets it wrong.
Right.
And we've all seen those kind of pictures on the web or I mean, just anywhere used in publishing where there's a bit of floating hair.
Yeah.
Because the algorithm got rid of the hairs in between, and there's just this clump of hair in space.
Yeah.
And it gets through because people don't have, if they're not doing it, they don't have to be 100% present. They don't have to give it all their attention. And that's what I don't like about having a computer do my job for me.
Yeah.
So that's
Because
my
also
own personal.
you can do it better.
Yeah, because well, I
In
would,
most cases you can.
I would say that I can always do it better, but it's always based on time,
It always costs time.
and time costs
Yeah,
because
you
I have
can't-
an hourly rate.
Exactly.
So
So
there's
the-
sometimes somebody will send me an image with a cutout, and they'll go, "Can you do that for me?" And I go, "Do you have a couple of €100?"
Yeah, if you don't, then not.
A couple of hundred? What?
Yeah.
What? And only 10 years ago, they go, "Yeah, okay, no problem. Is it only 200?"
Yeah.
And now
It's
it's
changed.
like, "What?
Yeah.
I can get it done for 50 cents
Yeah.
over there." Yeah, but it won't look
or
like
buy
how.
a 5-year-old app and do it with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like to do it the way I do it and manually do it. But I'm not anymore doing cutouts all day, every day.
No.
And if I were to be involved in a project where I was having to do 30, 50, 60 or 100 cutouts a day, I would certainly look at automation.
Yeah.
And I would want to include, and if I was in control of the photography, I would absolutely put green screen, blue screen. Can you imagine doing bikes?
Yeah.
Bikes.
Yeah. It'd be a perfect example of how to
tennis rackets.
do any object.
I remember
Basically.
one of my first jobs when I worked for Crossfield, where a cutout was the equivalent of a pen tool, but no beziers, so it was short little straight points, and I had to cut out a tennis
Oh,
racket,
yeah, joy.
a tennis racket, and then the ball was out of focus coming towards there. So
Just
so
to
with
make it more
with a
complicated.
hard line and no blurring facility. Can you imagine how stupid that looked? And then the tennis racket was in bokeh, so it was really sharp where the hand met the hand and the handle, and then as the tennis racket went off, it went out of focus.
Yeah.
So in between the actual, what they call it, the strings, and you've got the cubes, they progressively were going out of focus with a £1.5 million piece of hardware and software that only had the ability to create a hard line cutout, like a pen tool.
The paintballs.
How stupid that looked.
Yeah. But there was nothing else.
But I had to go through every single square manually of this tennis racket.
Yeah.
Took probably a day. Maybe an exaggeration, but... And now, 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Same thing, as long as you shoot it correctly.
Yeah.
So I would, the automation of it. So for your software, I would create workflow, I would put software in, and then I would shoot accordingly to get the best out of the software, and I'm then sure that I can place most things in front of this blue background, as long as it wasn't a blue object.
Yeah, that one, if
and then you just change it to a green.
You roll down your second window.
Yeah, you have your green and your blue, like I have in here, and this, so from a commercial workflow point of view, no, I know I can sit and I can do things manually, of course. And if you're doing a front cover of a magazine or something, you're being paid accordingly, well, then that justifies my time to do it pixel perfect.
Yeah.
But if I had to do a catalogue,
then it'd be painstaking.
Or product photography.
Yeah. But of course, I know people that now, as a photographer, would take all their pictures, upload them to India, and have someone do it for them.
Yeah.
For very few. But still, I'm not sure if that's a good approach to outsource your work.
Well, I mean, of course, if economics is what you need, and that's what you need with profit. If you're running a business, the profit margin is your primary concern, right?
Yeah, you can't spend an hour on each of those pictures.
And this would be another, I guess, highlight of the industry. It's a race to the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not aiming for higher quality. We're at most aiming for higher speed.
Well, higher speed and greater volume, but not with a higher increase in price, with a reduction of price.
Yeah.
And when your only means to compete is to say, I can give you more for less.
Yeah.
That by definition is a race to the bottom, isn't it?
It's basically why the large format printing business is where it is today. There are very few dealers out there that now specialize in large format because you can't make any money on it.
Yeah, but also the need for it, is it growing or reducing?
No, it's reduced, obviously. Because
the need for printing has got to be on a downward.
Yeah, it is. In general, it is. Yeah, there is still some need. There are still prints made, but it's not growing. Definitely.
Yeah, I use the analogy, I use the argument all the time. Out of every single image that is taken today in a professional context where someone gets paid to take and retouch, modify, post-production and deliver an image, how many are going to go on a printing press or any form of printing? That number as a percentage has got to be declining.
Definitely.
I wonder if we'll ever be at a point where it will just cease to exist.
I don't know. I think people still like to have something in their hands physically.
But it will reach a point as a magazine producer
that won't be
where it just won't be viable anymore.
Right.
And that's got nothing to do with...
Same with music, right? I mean, we used to buy music and have albums with nice covers that we could look and hang on our wall if we really liked them. And then you got CDs and with small booklets, and now you're just renting your music in the cloud.
Exactly.
So it might be the same with pictures. Could be.
Well, I mean, the music thing very much is close to my heart. I remember, you would save up your pocket money or whatever and earn a bit of money, do a few jobs because you wanted to buy an album. And you would go down and the album cover had a big impact on it. And then you would want the lyrics and double album, open booklets and everything. And then you would get your friends and then you'd go, oh wow, you've got that album. And you would sit silent with friends listening to an album.
I know. Yeah.
Is there a child that's ever done that now that's under the age of 15?
Probably not.
That has actually gone, oh my God, on iTunes or whatever, Spotify, the new latest album from XYZ is out. That's probably a group. I didn't mean that group, but you know what I mean. And that they just sit there and they listen to every single bar and every note and every word and then discuss it with their friends. No. Does music inspire that today?
I don't think so, not in the same way.
I don't know anybody that does that.
Yeah.
And there's a friend of mine that I went to their house, and after dinner they pulled out a vinyl.
Yeah.
It's about 18 months ago, something like that. Just pulled out a vinyl, and it was of an album that I had on my phone.
Right.
So my initial reaction is, "What are you doing, you monkey? Why would you bother doing that?" But
Yeah.
just watching the reverence of getting this, you have to hold it very delicately because you don't put your fingers on it, because
Yeah.
that's not good. And then you put it on, and it was a crappy little turntable, one of these like 50 quid things with
Right.
a speaker inside it and
Oh,
everything.
okay. So
It sounded like
not
shit.
about quality.
It's not, that made no difference.
No.
Hearing the needle go
Yep.
was just, it's perfect.
Yeah.
I want one.
It has a certain nostalgic value.
Well, it's deliberate. So my argument with it is also anything that comes easy to you, you instantly have less respect for it.
Yeah.
Anything that we attain easily. So when you just go, new Ed Sheeran album, click, cool.
Yeah,
it's
there.
just background. It's
Yeah.
anecdotal. It doesn't capture my
Yeah.
focus anymore.
Yeah.
Same with photography.
Yeah.
All you've got to do is turn on the camera.
Yeah. And you cut one.
It's
Yeah.
going to do a much better job than you if you just leave it on auto.
Yeah.
It doesn't create maybe the image that you want, but it will work out the exposure
Yeah.
much better than you can,
Much quicker.
and much quicker, and give you an image that you can play with. And then that there obviously is then the nightmare of
Yeah.
how do you play with it.
Yeah. So basically, you're saying that both of our professions are going to be extinct.
But I like that. It's a little bit like the Doctor Strangelove riding the nuke.
Yeah. Well, as long as we have fun riding it, right?
No, but it's not the case, though. I mean, I know it's easy to suggest that might be the case, but it isn't the case because we're still here. I'm still here.
We're still here, but
and I remember when I first started teaching, I did have an argument with myself as to do I teach the real stuff, what I called the real information?
Uh-huh.
Do I teach that? Because if I give all that away, I saw that by teaching and raising the bar, the bar is a bit like being, let's say, attached to the bottom of the bath with the water increasing, right? Because you would be raising the bar to your extinction, because then the market doesn't need you. I couldn't have been more wrong.
No, I agree.
I couldn't have been more wrong.
It's not that you're finished.
The vast majority of people would never need what is in my head.
No.
But the great thing is, the internet makes it that we can sell 24 hours a day and around the world. We don't have to sell geographically to the people that we can speak to. Remember when it used to be like that? Yeah, I mean, 98% of all businesses would fold overnight if we could only trade to the people that we could reach.
You probably have
how it used to be.
10 customers here, and the rest of them.
Well, I remember when I
world.
worked in the litho company at 16. You know, I used to, after a couple of weeks, I knew all our regular customers, and they were all walking distance.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah. I kind of like that about business now, that you can have global customer audiences. It's just,
Well, you have global reach, but then the problem is
the
that
interaction is difficult.
it's then impersonal.
Yeah.
And then you get somebody. So this is why because you got really pissed off about that 1-star review. That
Yeah,
it is just like a splinter in the brain for you,
Yeah.
isn't it? And there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that person would never have given you a 1-star review if they
Not
bought it
face-to-face.
from you face to face.
No.
If they had walked to a store, bought your software, had a discussion with you, saw you as a 3-dimensional entity, as a human, and then walked away, had a bit of a problem. If they had had a problem, they'd have walked back to the store traditionally and they say, hey, I think there might be something wrong. And you say, yeah, well, there's nothing wrong, but what you're doing is wrong. And they'd give you the chance, and they'd go back to the store to rectify whatever, to try and find out what the problem was.
Yeah.
But because it's so impersonal, there's no conscience of somebody. I don't think anybody who gives a 1-star review actually stops to consider the potential damage they could be
They don't
inflicting on a really, really good business, that it might be the fault of the purchaser, just not understanding what they bought. That could be a thing. Or it could be, you know, if you're like, I give reviews of good experiences I have when I go and eat. I've had many experiences which are not good.
Yeah.
But I would never make a review of a bad experience with food.
No.
Because that could be, the chef just had a bad day. And it was just bad luck. That doesn't make the restaurant bad.
No.
Just because I had a bad experience. It could also be that it just wasn't to my taste.
Yeah. It'd be more fair if you went up to the chef and said, "Look, were you okay today?" Or
I've never been in a restaurant in my life where when they come back and they see that you haven't like really got into your meal and they say, "Is everything okay?" And I go, "Well, look, it just doesn't work for me." There isn't a restaurant I've ever been to that hasn't offered to just take it away and replace it with something else.
Yeah.
And I would never even make them do that. I would always pay for it, because if I chose it, well, then it's on me. It's not on you.
But the reason they do that because they want a
it's
happy
goodwill.
customer. They don't
So
want
for me to walk away and just go, "Yeah, they're shit," 1-star review.
it doesn't help anyone.
That's that. Well, I just think the damage of that 1 star
Yeah.
can massively outweigh 100 really good ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it does my head in a little bit sometimes with.
Yeah, but we have to deal with it. I mean, the reviews are there, and the only thing I can do is respond to it. So whenever I do get feedback that is of some content, then I really appreciate it, because I if I get some good suggestions, like can you do this or that in the app,
Yeah.
I'm happy with that, because that I can actually work with.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody saying, "Well, it doesn't work," I can't do anything with that, because I
Yeah,
know it
exactly.
works. Apple wouldn't approve the app if it didn't work.
Yeah.
All apps in the App Store are tested, so you know they work.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't work for you, that may be the case.
Yeah, it could be
Doesn't
just
mean
you.
the app doesn't work.
Yeah. But to a lot of people, the potential of it being them isn't even in their headspace.
No.
It has to always be somebody else's fault.
Yeah, it's easier.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Well, thank you
Are
for
we done?
allowing me to present here. Thank
Good.
you.
Well, no, look, I mean, it's for me. It's good for me, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to now get hold of this, and then I'm going to use it on these more traditional-based studio things, because you see it very much as an event thing, because that's how it's being used, okay, and that's how you developed it for an event, or yes.
Yeah.
But as always, for me, I always try to look at things from a different perspective,
Yeah,
and I just think when I look at what a lot of the retouching techniques, or in combination with studio setups with retouching techniques, the hours or the brain power that has to go into getting the background right could be eliminated.
Right.
Because the first thing I do when I go into a studio is I just take a picture of the studio with no one in it.
Mm-hmm.
Because from post-production, I need that in my back pocket.
Yeah.
So if I need to do a cutout to make this image look a lot better, I can just do the cutout really, really quickly and superimpose it. And because the backgrounds already match, no one knows it's a cutout.
Yeah. Nice.
Works
Good
really
trick.
well. Works really well. So anyway, so let's wrap this up.
Yep.
We'll be back at some point in time, and we'll deal with. We should do another one of these specific
I'd be
to this
glad
thing
to.
that we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to go off and get lunch. So
Well, thanks everyone for
if
watching.
if there was anybody, oh Jesus.
Oh, we got some comments we didn't
Oh
look
my
at.
God. I put this iPad here so that I could see the comments.
That was your job.
And it was my job to read all of these. I can't open the image and finish it. Oh God, yeah. So there's loads of people watching. Anyway,
But
thanks for watching.
We'll respond
and
to these.
and
offline.
he will respond to them, not me.
Yeah. No, I will. If you
You
send
will.
me an email, I will respond to any questions. If I can't respond there, I will respond to email.
Okay, so guys, so we're going to go for lunch, and we'll see you later. So thanks for watching. How do we turn this off?
Yeah, we can do that.
I got so many iPads with so many things. Maybe we should leave it just for a little while before we turn it off. Maybe turn the mic off. That would be a good idea.